Yo, yo, yo. Hey, guys, welcome back to another amazing edition of the Best Practices Show podcast. I have a question for you. What do you say when a new PPO patient calls your out-of-network office? Well, that question comes up a lot in our community. And recently, we did a BPA live on this very subject, in which Dr. Barrett Straub, Dr. Christopher Mazzola, and a host of other people chimed in, and it was awesome. So I thought I would share the audio version of this great question on this hot topic on the podcast. So please listen up. I hope you guys enjoy it, and we'll see you soon. Awesome. Well, let's get this rolling. So thank you guys for joining our BPA Live, where today we're going to be talking about how to invite PPO patients into your out-of-network office. And so we're excited to have you here. Brian, thanks for joining us. Probably driving. So I was actually Zooming with Angela, and she was driving. People should not drive in Zoom. So
no.
Yeah, but it's awesome. All right. So Barry, give us a little intro on this.
Why the topic came from our BPA community. There's a question posted in the community about, hey, when we're bringing in patients, when patients call that have a PPO and you're out of network, that's a hard conversation. And what's the best way to bring people in to your practice when you're all out of network, or at least when you're out of network with that PPO, and how to get them in your doors and value your dentistry, and what are some of the verbal skills to get past those challenges of that initial new patient phone call.
Yeah. I think one of the rumors we have to dispel right away is those are bad patients, when they start asking those types of questions, and they're not, right?
Not at all. We don't know yet. Part of the reason is they're starting that conversation talking about insurance because that's all they know. Right. And so, to your point, we have to suspend the notion that just because they mention insurance from the get-go doesn't necessarily mean that that's their total motivation or driving force.
Right. And I think one of the things that I love there's many things that I love working with so many brilliant coaches, because they bring such a wide depth of experience, and all of them have actually worked in the trenches of great dental offices trying to be better. And we're republishing a podcast in the next couple of weeks. It's one of my favorite, and it's Miranda talking about why obstacles are so important, because patients give you these obstacles, and a lot of times we get so freaked out about them that we dismiss them, but she said they're just a gift. And so when somebody's calling saying, hey, do you take my insurance? I think one of the things you got to do is just change your mindset and say, hey, listen, and this isn't limited to just the PPO or do you take my insurance question. But when I ask you a question, or I throw an obstacle at you, if this was a sales training course, I always say this: if you've ever taken sales training at a very high level is like, oh, thank you so much for that difficult question. We're going to set it right here because I know that's important to you. And you have to trust yourself in that space. Don't you think?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and I've got a few slides. I know you. So let me just share this. Can you see my screen right now?
Yes.
So one of the things is, just take every obstacle, and this one being a big one, and just softly set it to the side for now. And so it's a big one too. Hey, I'm on this PPO. Do you take it? So do you take my lousy insurance? And so I think chances are patients aren't 100% clear about how their plan works. They don't really know a lot, don't you think? So
That's correct. Yeah.
yeah.
And it's an opportunity for you to both be truthful and say, no, I do not, or yes, we can entertain your insurance. I'd like to find out more about that. We're going to get in some verbal skills here, but there's some very strategic ways to set that insurance question aside, get to know them, get to understand what they want, and then bring that back in. And, quite often, we have some verbal strategies where it's like, yeah, we have lots of patients in our practice with your same insurance. Now, we're an unrestricted provider. Let me tell you what that means in our practice. So we're basically like saying, yes, you can use your insurance. No, we're not a contracted provider. Let me tell you how that's going to look just a little bit different, and maybe some of the reasoning behind that. In the end, you want to transition as quickly as possible to, hey, come into my practice and meet us. And I love, when we're, because where this question came from was one of our member dentists, like all of us, are having trouble with this, having trouble having this conversation, having trouble, recently I've gone out of network now trying to get these people into their practice. Again, let's pause. A PPO patient calling an out-of-network dentist has zero financial incentive to be in your practice. Mm-hmm. It's true consumerism. It's true capitalism. It's true competition. It's all the good stuff. And if you can get them to see your value, your differentiation, they're going to become a very loyal patient for many, many years, regardless of PPO. So I love in this situation, I used to use meet and greets as one great strategy. And Kirk, we can talk about that in a minute. But one of the key points when a true consumer is calling, number one is they have great verbal skills, which we're going to go through a little bit. Number two is get them in soon, like 7 days or less. Yep. And we're going to talk about how meet and greets can meet that. Again, if I am calling your practice, I have a PPO, but you don't take it. So therefore, I have zero financial incentive to be with you. And a couple things. If that phone call is confusing, I'm gone. If that phone call, if you make it difficult for me to do business with you, I'm gone because I'm going to go somewhere else. And if you can't get me in for weeks and weeks and weeks, I'm gone. Yeah. And so let's think of how we ourselves act as consumers, and let's try to provide frictionless entry into your practice for these patients.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. And we'll get into the details. And, thank you guys for joining. Jill Robinson in the house. Thanks for joining us. Feel free to ask questions in the chat as we get going.
Hi, Jill.
We always love seeing people from the ACT Dental BPA community showing up. So a couple more things I'll just piggyback on that is this is my thread for the month. You know how you build a great practice. You just do it one patient at a time, one day at a time. And so you don't need every single patient that calls with this. You just need success with one patient in one day, and then share it with somebody either in the morning huddle or tell the doctor at the end of the day, just say, hey, I got somebody to come in. How cool is that? Because I think we would all agree if we can get them here, for the most part, they're going to stay. Now, a big piece of this is just helping team members understand while we might not participate directly, you still have to be insurance friendly. So their insurance is, and this is another life skill that I'm learning. When somebody tells me something, I used to blow it off and go, no, you don't feel that way. When somebody tells you they feel some way, that is their truth. And I'm learning that with my kids that are young adults now. So when they tell me something, I'm like, yes, that is true. How you feel is how you true. And I'm applying that to the insurance thing because they might think that's important. And you can't just dismiss that. So we're insurance friendly. The answer is always yes in some fashion. While you might not participate directly, we never tell patients what we can't do. We tell them what we can do. Now, I think another big piece of this is supporting your team that answers the phone with some great, training, some mindset. We like to use the word alignment here at ACT Dental. Whenever we're doing something new, we just want to make sure we're on the same page. And so a lot of times team members, admin superstars are left up there to figure that out. And I think as a dentist or as a team, we gotta support them. Don't you think, Barrett?
Yeah, absolutely. We have to support them. We have to practice. We have to train. We have to watch some of our webinars. We have to go through verbal skills. We got to set them up with some scripts or at least some starting points of some verbiage they can fall back on and rely. We have to, number one, help with mindset.
Yeah.
And so I'm having this thought as we talk, and I've been here. Practices going out of network, practices dropping PPOs, practices talking to these patients and struggling with it. It's this idea or it's this assumption that I've got to almost like trick the patient into getting into my practice and understanding. And absolutely not. We don't need to trick. We don't have to use fancy words. We do want to use good verbal skills. But think about it this way. If you're out of network and that patient calling, their number one motivator is to find the lowest cost, and they're going to go through PPO, they're not going to come to your practice. If a patient is motivated purely by finding the lowest cost by someone on their list, you don't have to trick them. You actually don't necessarily want them. Now, that doesn't mean all PPO patients are bad. If a patient wants quality and value and wants to get a good value for their dollar, bring them in. That's right. The patient you want that like. And so my point in that is like, we don't have to be afraid and we don't have to trick them into thinking it's not going to cost a little more. We can be pretty transparent, but be able to describe why we are differentiated, why we provide a higher level of service, why they should consider coming to us, even though it's going to cost a little bit more. It's okay to say that, in my opinion.
Totally. And Barrett's the smart one here. I'm not so smart, so I'll try to be the simplifier. So if you're listening to this, you're like, okay, I totally get that. I'm going to inject just an easy way to think about this is you can just describe what's important to you. Your favorite people in building a business, any kind of business, will care about the same things that you care about. So if I was working the admin area of your practice and you were having this challenge consistently, I would say, hey, listen, I'm so glad you called. First things first, it's all about relationships for us. I would love to know who I'm speaking to. Would you mind? Can you share with me your name? I'm going to purposely slow the conversation down because what Barrett's saying is true. It's better to lose way up front than to lose later on. But I'm just going to start up front by starting with what's important to me. And that by itself is a differentiator in dentistry. 99.9% of dental practices that you call say, do you take my insurance? And they don't. They say, well, we don't participate directly, but they're reading from a script or best they know type of a thing. So I'm just going to slow it down and let people know what's important to us at this practice. It's all about relationships.
I like that. And remember, most people, again, if they only want the lowest cost, you don't want them anyway. But most people want to know that they can utilize their benefits.
Yeah.
I'm going to get what I'm been promised and owed. And when you can say, yeah, yes, absolutely, we can help you with that. We're insurance friendly. I used to say, I got Chrissy up front. She's a bulldog. She's going to get every dollar that your insurance company owes you. But it's going to look a little bit different than if you're contracted. Let me tell you about it. And then we have all these verbal skills. And at some point you say, hey, let's get you in here. You can have a cup of coffee. You can meet Dr. Straub and just talk to him. Or let's get you set up and let's get you in. And I loved meet and greets. Or I loved finding an opportunity to get them in with 7 days, even if it meant not a new patient exam, even if it meant we're going to do it for free, which I'd highly suggest for meet and greets. Because I knew once they come into our office and meet my team and meet me and we sit down and they get one-on-one time with me, they're never going anywhere. And that's, that's the beauty of this meet and greet. Most people have trouble wrapping their brains around, well, why would I do this? Once you do it, you're going to have a loyal patient for a long, long time.
Yeah, you've got a signature secret, though, you're not sharing. So
what's that?
It's, I love, and I have it on video, actually, is that when you go to meet a patient, they go, oh, this is Dr. Straub. You diffuse it right away, and you go, just call me Barrett, type of a thing. And I love how you take it to a personal level. John Coyce does that, too. Every time I call him Dr. Coyce, he's like, don't do that. Just call me John. And while as simple as that is, you feel so much more comfortable that two people are talking and you know that you're in the presence of somebody that's trying to help you. don't you? Can you give us a little philosophy on that? And I think it feeds right into this because we're not creating a higher tier, lower tier. Do you know what I mean? It's just two people talking.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, whether it's a meet and greet or whether it was the new patient exam or whether it's the first time I'm meeting any patient, I did it in a consultation room, not in a dental chair, knee to knee, eye to eye, same level, less formal. And I just talked to him like a human being. And I'm just like, hey, Barrett, let's talk, and I would ask them about, ask them questions about their life, share a few things about your dental office and say, I'd really love to have you as a patient. Why don't you come back? And here's what that first, you're always talking like you're assuming they're going to come back because why wouldn't they? Right. Like, hey, when we bring you back, we're going to do our comprehensive exam. Let me tell you what that means. It's going to be the most detailed, awesome dental experience you've ever had. You're going to get this, you're going to get that. We're going to do this, we're going to do that. And they're like, that sounds amazing. Now, here's how insurance works in our practice. Right. Go into the routine. And by the end of it, they're like, I don't care if I pay a little more. This place is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, and I feel like I'm so excited about this because we jumped over some pieces. But before that conversation, which is brilliant. No, this is really good. I mean, and we've shared this for years. I think the best that I've seen, and I've seen a lot of them do this, they never answer questions. They ask questions. Now, there's a certain psychology behind that because when I'm asking you a question, number one, I'm in control of the conversation. Now, it's not always about control or hyper control. Don't get me wrong. I want to learn more and I'm going to guide you through this experience. That's how I look at control. So when somebody says, do you take my insurance? And you clearly don't, you don't have to say no. You can say yes this way. Say, and again, don't answer the question. I would say that sounds like that's very important to you. Can you share with me a little bit about why you asked that question? Because my name is Kirk. And I'm totally going to help you with that. And so they might say, well, I work for the employer here in town and we were given this insurance and I've been told I only need to go to a provider and blah, blah, blah. And they're going to share with you more. I'm going to start to peel back that first layer of things. And so you don't have to answer every question. I think the better you are at asking questions, I always tell people the question is the answer. Like the best I've ever seen in 30 some years of doing this, they're just really good at questions. They're like, that's a really good, share with me, tell me a little bit more. What do you know about your insurance? Because once they've answered those questions, now you can start to help them navigate through the next step. You don't have to mislead them. Be super honest with people. So I think if you can get good at just asking, and two questions I'd give you right away is number one, would you mind sharing with me your name? I always love to know who I'm talking to. I'm so glad you called. And number two, just share with me a little bit about why you asked that question, because I'm the right person to ask that question to.
And you can always say, I'm going to totally answer that question in a few minutes. There's a few questions I need to ask you before I'm able to. Number one, what's your name? Number two, how have you used your insurance in the past? Number three, what is the insurance? Number four, blah, blah, blah. And in those questions, so following up question is a question, you're going to understand where their motivations are coming from. And you're going to, when you do go there, you're going to come better prepared with the right information for that patient.
Yeah. And Barrett, look who joined us, Dr. Christopher Mazzola. He's been ducking us. He's been hiding.
Here he is.
He's back. And he's probably with his kids, hanging out in the back. So
busy, man. Busy.
I hear you. So you chime in whenever you feel like it, but you guys just recently went out of network. So you get this question all the time. And you have a very large practice, a lot of patients, thousands of patients. I'm sure. Here's one thing I want to know. Can you just answer this? You guys have how many patients? How many active patients?
400.
How many?
4,400.
4,400. You're out of network. Okay.
Correct.
Do 90% of the calls you get go, hey, I know you're out of network. I know I got to pay cash. Like, how do I do this type of a thing? Do they even know what they're getting into before they call?
I think now more people know what they're getting into. I think that first 2-3 months, it was a lot more dialogue about it. But, the amazing thing is more and more people are saying that's the way my old office did it. So they're seeking out that I'd like to consider myself a high value practice, right? They were probably at a high value practice beforehand, and that's just what they're used to. I think Joy up front could probably attest to it a little bit more. But I think that, since, let's say, our waiting list to be a new patient at the practice has not gotten any shorter. So we like that.
Love it. Yeah.
Chris, part of that transition was your admin, Joy, at the front, and others. They've changed their verbiage from when you were in network. It was like, hey, you got Delta, come on in, versus like, hey, I got Delta. They've had to learn what to say now, what questions to ask now, how to change that conversation so that when that patient knows when they onboard into your practice, it's going to look a little bit different than an in-network.
Absolutely, thanks to Miranda.
Right.
So how does that work for you guys now?
I think one question that we've simplified things down to is when we have the initial conversation, they kind of ask, so tell me how you feel about your dental needs. And so that can kind of streamline them into the different ways into the practice, whether it is right away a full comprehensive exam, or whether if they're 30 years old and they've been seen consistently, can they go into hygiene? Trying to cater it more towards them personally. We're always trying to be as, individualized as we can be without making them feel like they're getting involved in something too soon. Because, some people just aren't ready for comprehensive care. And so we want to make sure that they're not entering the practice getting bulldozed. I tell you one really cool thing we did that I don't know if I've ever told you this about when we transitioned away. Every single person who left the practice because of Delta Dental, right, our relationship change, we created a code that we're able to set complete in their chart that the patient left. And so we did that for two reasons. One, when they came back, we were able to then set a different code complete, and then we can compare of how many have left versus how many come back. And it's amazing how many come back within that first 6 months. And the other thing is it gives us a way to do follow-up calls at the 6-month mark. Hey, Kirk, we're just calling, reaching out, making sure that you have found a new dental home that you're happy with. If not, we'd be more than happy to get you back in with our hygienist. Is everything going all right? Right? Like something simple like that, just so they know we care and we're continuing to follow through and check in. It's amazing how many people we've pulled back in that way too.
That is brilliant.
Love that idea.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, that's a gem right there. And I have to say, it wasn't me, because I always just regurgitate all the great things that I hear. That was Dr. Mike Crete in Grand Rapids, who did this about 25 years ago, and he did it then. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Because these are people you already know.
Yeah.
Their circumstances change. They still like you.
Yep.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So like as the 6th or 7th month rolls, you just search that code for us, it's EagleSoft. And then you can see all the people that, 6 months ago left, and then 6 months ago left, and then 6 months ago left. And you can try to reactivate them.
And you also have data, so you're not telling yourself a weird story about anything.
Analytics.
Yeah. It's so cool.
Yeah.
What else are you?
That's our PPO roadmap. Thank you, Chris.
For sure. What else are you withholding?
I don't know. You get a lot of my good stuff in real time. That has been a gem that I've been wanting to share.
Yeah. All right. Let me throw a couple at you that we get. Okay. So, and again, Joy does a lot of this up front, but when patients start asking before they come in about, if this isn't going to be covered by insurance, like, is this going to be accepted as payment? Like, is this going to be out of pocket? Like, how is this all going to work? Or thoughts?
Yeah, I think the verbiage has to be delicate when you're talking with new people, but yeah, our We collect at time of service. From what we're seeing from other patients with insurance like yours, typically you're receiving a check back in the correct amount of days. If it's Delta, it's usually within 2 weeks or 10 business days. And then we're seeing their reimbursement is approximately X, just so we're giving them ballparks of what they can expect. And that's just kind of the way that it goes in our office now. And I will tell you again, we don't get kickback from the people who have been strongly referred. Now, the people that are searching us and finding us on Google, then there's more questions that get asked for sure. Those new patient phone calls start getting to be 10, 15, 20, 25 minutes long because they're just continuing to ask further questions into those details.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have so many questions. So Barrett, jump in when you need to. I did an interview with Jeff Rouse one time, and he said, one of my biggest pet peeves is when a dentist calls a patient a Delta patient. Like they have this scarlet letter.
Yeah.
They're still a human being. Just because they have Delta doesn't mean they're a horrible person. They're not, they just don't know. In your perspective, from your perspective, as you're building this amazing practice, give us some perspective on how much of the people that you enjoy over time and you do great dentistry with that started with that question type of a thing.
Yeah, I think once you have the opportunity to get them into the office and wow them, starting with our receptionist, right? Like introducing with a big smile and having a great conversation as they enter the reception area. We don't have a waiting room, right? And as they get guided into our consult room to have a conversation with Samantha and myself or Andrea, who are my two main assistants, and then getting a tour of the office, talking about how we have a ceramist and we have technology and, trying to continue to build value. And then when you execute a really well done new patient examination and conversation, whether you have to bring them back for review of findings or not, they see the value in what you bring and why you're different. I think it's really hard to build value in a non-PPO office when they see the hygienist first and this dark, ominous shadow comes over with loops and a mask and tells them they need 14 crowns and then they leave, right? It's like, whoa, that's not the way we do things. And it never has. And that's been, I would tell you, a staple in the practice for, a decade for me, and a little bit longer from when Dr. Swan started doing comprehensive exams that way.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Barrett, do you have any? I have so many questions. Can I ask away? Okay. Let me throw this at you. But Dr. Mazzola, I have been told that I have to go to an in-network dentist. Why aren't you in my network? You used to be in my network. You're not in my network anymore. Do you say I can't because it's lousy? I mean, what do you say? Well, I'm kidding with you. I'm having fun, obviously.
Right. Well, I will tell you, for some personality styles, I gave them the answer.
What is it?
Is that the reimbursement from your insurance company that's either you purchased or provided to you as a wonderful gift from your employer. You always want to make it nice. Don't want to make it sound like they're getting ripped off, right? Hasn't changed in our practice since 2001. And I asked them, I say, would you have stayed with your employer if you hadn't gotten a raise in 23 years? And then they just smile and say, no, I understand.
Right.
Everyone understands rising costs, and you can have your dialogue, how it feels good for you based on who you're speaking to. If that's more for my analytic business person, right? If it's someone who's emotional, I just say, it was, really kind of tying our hands, and we weren't able to provide the same level of care, skill, and judgment that you've been used to for 60 years coming to Travers Dental, for some of our older people who have been there for a long time. I mean, you have to know your audience and who you're talking to on their personality style and on how to make them hear it in their way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm loving this. Can I keep going? Okay. Can I use my insurance here though? Like, I totally understand what you're saying and I want to come here, but can I use it here and obviously you don't know the answers to that. I mean, what are your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I think our front does try to handle that right up and find out if they have out of network coverage.
Okay.
And that is something that we've had Nancy in our office for 28 years, who has been a mainstay, and she's got her personal contacts with all these insurance companies to get quick answers, which is really nice. But yeah, that's a harder, I don't want to say flip for somebody on whether they have zero coverage because they have no out of network coverage versus the people who do have out of network coverage. And the answer is very simple. Yeah, absolutely. You can use it here.
Right. So I've got another one for you. Well, Barrett, jump in at any time.
No, keep going. You're on a roll.
I'm not kidding. I could keep hearing for 4.5.
Yeah.
Okay. No, this is real stuff. Like I love our community, but here's what a lot of docs say, is like, okay, listen, I really want to do this. I know it's in the best interest of the practice. I know it's the right thing to do. I have a large team. I have 4 team members. Their family members are on quote unquote Delta, or the person who's working in my front, she's got her whole family on this. She's looking at this and they're telling themselves a story, obviously, that doctor wants to make more money. My family can't come here anymore. Like, just, can you fly into the eye of that hurricane a little bit?
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to be soapboxy, but you need to take care of your people.
Right.
And whatever that looks like for you personally in your practice as you make changes, that is your most important asset, is to make them feel valued and heard and understood. And so if you have a team of people that has their own dental coverage, you need to address that. Absolutely. Now, whether you honor Delta fees, I will tell you, in our practice, we have some long-standing farming families. We have some massive Catholic families that we honor fees. We find out what Delta's going to pay, and that's what we do because we love them and they've been a part of the practice for a long time, and we want them to stay with us because they know and trust us. And I don't think anything's wrong with that. But you have to be careful with doing that. You can't just let the floodgates open. But yeah, in certain situations, you got to take care of your people, and your people is your patient population. It is your practice, but you also can't get railroaded by Delta all the time.
Love it.
Absolutely.
Love it. Okay. So Dr. Mazzola, I want to do this. Can you figure out what insurance will cover before I decide? Do you ever get that one?
Yeah. So, this is actually an interesting conversation we've been having with Miranda. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So are you an out-of-network practice, or are you a fee-for-service practice?
Ooh.
And I know that sounds like not a very distinguishable thing, but it is. If you're out of network, but you're still pretending and doing all this other stuff, seeking to find all these free auths and all this other craziness, you're still kind of insurance dependent a little bit. Versus fee for service, this is our fee. And then you kind of tell the patient how they can seek to find the answer for what their insurance is going to help them with. Because at the end of the day, it is their insurance. Just depends on the way you want to build your business. We, unfortunately, are not in that fee for service quote. We are, but we still do a lot of front end loading to try to figure out how they're going to be helped because they're used to it. The practice was built on that. And it's kind of hard to strip all that down and have them feel kind of by themselves. Does that make sense?
It does.
And Chris, I think that's the most successful model for going out of network for most dental practices. Just what you described. It was how my practice was, and you have to be careful with it, but it's a service to the patients. And
yeah.
I again, you got to take care of your people. I like how you said that. And that's one way that I could very ethically stand on, like, no, I'm out of network, but we're going to help you get your maximum benefit. Now, and it's a little bit of semantics between out of network fee for service and don't take assignment of benefits and there's overlap,
Yeah.
and all that. I think most practices going out of network should stay supportive to the patients. And that next, not accepting any assignment of benefits is a whole another level and different decision. I think it's a slightly different decision altogether than in network, out of network. And so your model you described, I like that because a lot of patients want that, need that. And it's a value. That's a differentiator as you compare yourself against other out of network patients. Again, a out of network patient has zero financial incentive to be with an out of network provider. And if I'm left with two of them, and this one's going to help me navigate my insurance a little bit, even though I know they're going to get their full fee for service, and this one's just going to throw me to the wind, I'm probably going to choose the one that's going to help me a little bit as
Exactly.
myself.
And that's the way that we feel about it. I mean, it was a big change for everybody, the practice included. And we wanted to, I don't think that'll ever go away for us.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. What you get a chance to go down to Pankey, teach a lot. You talk to a lot of dentists. What do most dentists get wrong about this whole concept?
I think that a lot of people feel like you're putting yourself into the upper class is the only people that can afford you at that point. And some people have a big problem with that. They feel like that the middle class or even the lower socioeconomic families can't afford you by differentiating yourself that way. And it's actually, there was something that just came up at the Institute about that they a participant felt like it was you were being coached to only treat the elite, which is not the point, not even close, right? It's to treat someone comprehensively and offer them the best possible treatment for them, and then they get to decide on how they manage themselves, right? And that is one thing that I think is a big miss. You can treat everybody in a fee-for-service model because you control the fees. You know, if someone's hard on their luck and you want to make sure that they can go interview for a job and redo their smile, you can charge them $1,000. You can charge them $10,000. That's the glorious thing. You can do whatever you want. So I don't believe that's true. I think that's a miss. I think some people are so scared to pull the trigger that their practice is going to crumble. You know, I think if you follow a roadmap, there you go. It's for you guys.
Look at that.
It does help. Proof's in the pudding. I've done it.
Yeah.
You have to be intentional. You have to help support your staff. You have to make sure that they believe that the value is there, because if they don't, it's not going to work as well. Yeah, I think some people just wait too long to where they build this big machine, speaking from experience, to where we started to feel a burnout and run down. And that we started to feel like we weren't getting paid a fair fee for our care, skill, and judgment. So you start to not enjoy your career, which I think is another thing. You know, I think you need help with it. I think some people who try to do it themselves get buried. And I think when you're in a multiple partners situation like we were, it has to be the ship is going one direction, not getting pulled three. It's like everyone's got to be all in. It's that all in core value.
Love it. Barrett, I have more questions, but I don't want to jump over.
Go for it. Keep going. All right.
So before you jumped on, Chris, I want to get into the details because I love this stuff. I'm not kidding. I could ask you questions for 2 more hours on this. Barrett was talking about in his practice.
Chris, I won't let him ask you questions for 2
I know.
10 more minutes. I won't take up your whole night.
That's okay. Okay, one more. I just want one more because I'm not kidding.
One more homework.
I'm a CE junkie. My wife said to me after 5 days at the Seattle Study Club Symposium one day, she's like, "Do you really like this?" I'm like, "I freaking love it." So, Barrett was talking about kind of a frictionless entry point into his practice. So meet and greet was an easy way, comprehensive exam. Do you guys have a philosophy on making it easy for people to get into your practice and meet you guys first, or do they have to go to comprehensive exam? Where are you at with this on that?
No.
Tell us more.
This is actually something that's one of our priorities right now in our 90 days. Okay. Of like reevaluating our new patient process entry into the practice, because we are pretty rigid. We see everybody for a 90-minute new patient exam unless they hit every criteria under the sun that they can go see hygiene first. We don't really have free consultations. We don't do meet and greets really. I mean, maybe one a year someone will ask for it, and then it's okay. I'd be more than happy to. But the problem is from how busy we are not seeing enough new patients. And so we're still being a little bit of the flux of our transition with Delta, to where we do have some openings in hygiene that haven't been recouped from new patients. So it's an interesting question to be asked right now, actually, because we're asking ourselves that same question. But yeah, I mean, for a decade, it's been 90 minutes. We meet in the consultation room, you get a tour, and then we'd help diagnose the type of x-rays you need and photographs, and whether, you have really two or more things that need to be discussed. You come back for a review of findings, and we have a nice presentation with Joy, a treatment planning coordinator, on how to work through it in this practice.
Mm-hmm. Love it.
So that's the unfortunate truth, is that we only have one way, really.
All right. So we're going to do a follow-up interview in 90 days.
I hope I got an answer. Sometimes that's hard. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an interesting question, because you want enough friction to weed out the patients that don't believe what you believe.
Right.
And you want less, not too much friction for your avatar patients that they can find a way in. So one of the reasons I did a lot of that was, sorry about the thumb, not necessarily as a friction. I loved, I was pretty rigid on the 90-minute new patient exam also. And I would always, one of my filters was, and I don't care if you have insurance or not, you're going to pay for it all. And then and that was my filter. Like, hey, if someone can't pony up X amount, and they're not going to value my dentistry, yada, yada. However, I totally agree with you. Like, there's patients that should come in through hygiene because they're super healthy. And the number one reason I use meet and greets, or again, as an out of network, if someone's calling on the phone and I can't get them in soon, they might go somewhere else. So I always told my team, like, I want them, if someone's calling on the phone, I want them in within 7 to 10 days. And if we don't have a new patient slot, we're going to hook them up with a meet and greet. They don't even know the difference. They don't know they're coming in an alternative route. This is just how we welcome patients. They came in, we did all the stuff you just said. And then we say, okay, let's do this. I want to get you back. I really want to spend the time you deserve. Let's do a new patient exam comprehensive. And the patient's like, oh, this is great. So the whole point is, like, if someone's on the phone, they're motivated, let's get them in sooner rather than 3 months from now. And then once you do that, you got them forever.
Yeah, no, I mean, that is something that we're working towards right now. I mean, I've got like 40 people on a call list, which, that conversion is probably going to end up being 8 if they've waited 3 months or more. So great. I get 20% of the people who are dying to see me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not a great problem to have, but it's a hard problem to solve when time is tight.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure.
Well, if anyone can solve it, we believe you can. So
hard.
Absolutely.
Oh, it's so much fun having you on here. We get to ask you all the questions because you're in the trenches doing it. Yeah. We're just coaching so many practices and sharing their experiences. And that's what this is all about, is just like bringing the best information so you guys can use this and improve your practice. Give us some final thoughts. So, Chris, you go first because you're on personal time.
Final thoughts. I think if we're talking about how we pull the PPO people back, because that was the title of this, right? I think if you're in the process of making the transition, I think giving yourself hard data and making codes to be able to track has been very valuable. So again, it's a code that you set complete the day they leave, and then you have something that you can track them 6 months, 7 months, 8 months out, and give wonderfully coached phone calls, just checking in, see how they're doing. And then it's a beautiful time to be able to reactivate someone, because the majority of those people have not found a home and they come back.
Yeah.
So that's, I think, from a data standpoint, which we love data, it's invaluable.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Chris.
Barrett.
Yeah, guys.
Yeah. Barrett, your final thoughts.
I think the biggest challenge in this question of this exact phone call with the PPO patient calling an out of network, it's about fear. And it's not the patient's fear, it's the person on the phone's fear. And they can sense and feel fear. And so when you're scared to have the conversation, they see right through you. And so instead, you need to first address the in-network or the in-network provider, unrestricted provider. Here's what it means. 2, you have to go, let me tell you how this is going to look in our practice. Number 3, you go to, this is why we do it. This is why we value. Here's our core values. And number 4, you say, let's get you set up. And you do it with confidence and positivity, and you're going to convert so many patients. But if your team is scared and mumbling with their words, and the patient senses like something's wrong here, they're scared to talk to me about it, they're going to go elsewhere, and the conversion is going to go way down. So you gotta set your vision. You got to hold your chin up high. You got to smile. You got to be confident and say, here's how it works. Here's why we do it. Let's get you set up. You're going to love doctor. He's amazing. And then go.
I love it. So well said, buddy. You know, I'll just piggyback on that, and just I'm the person that loves the big picture of this. I think you always have to remind yourself of the why. If you're young enough, you're going to practice 3 more decades. Some of you might practice 4 more decades. And I think if you can set your sail to, hey, listen, I don't need to be everyone's dentist. The best we've ever seen, you know, for one doctor, they only need 1,200 patients. The better you are comprehensively, probably need less than that, or somewhere in the general neighborhood of that. And if you can look at this as an opportunity to build a practice where people eventually come into your practice and pay your full fee and value what you do, you know what happens. They tell other people who are just like them, and it might start with 1 a week. We only got 1 this week. Then next week, you get another 1. Then the following week, you get 2 more. Then the following week, you get 2 more. Then the week after that, you might get, who knows? But over time, 3, 4, 5 years of this, you're like, wow, we got people that are paying my full fees. And now you're back to why you became a dentist in the first place. It's freedom, your ability to choose how to treat people, how to care for people. And that's the real big benefit, is when you're expressing your natural values and how you love to take care of people and do it the right way. My son broke his kneecap a week and a half ago. We went to the top surgeon in town, and they said the best things. We're built differently here. We treat people the way we know they should be treated. So it's great that you guys have health insurance. We're going to do it the way we know it should be done. And my wife was like, she didn't even look at me. She's like, we already know who our surgeon is. The confidence that the entire office had when they were looking at us, we were like, these are our people. And I know they're going to do it right. And at the end of the day, that's peace of mind. That's trust. And I'll send everybody in Milwaukee that ever has a broken bone to this guy, because he's the best. That's the story I tell myself. And the cool thing is you get to create these stories as a dental practice. And I think if you can coalesce your team around the why and see the bigger picture, you know, these people aren't bad people that are calling. They're incredible opportunities, and they're human beings at the end of the day. And if we can see bigger, not everybody's going to stay. Not everybody's going to say yes. But 1 a week is a great place to start. Then you get 2, then you get 3, and then you look up. And I'll never forget, I'll end with what Pete Dawson said. And I've never forgotten this. He's like, Kirk, it takes 5 to 7 years to become an overnight success. That's just the truth. And he's like, you start if you're consistent, you stay focused on the right things, you're going to wake up one day and go, how in the heck did we even get here? And that's what our hope is on this. So thank you guys for joining us. Sonia, you jumped in. It's good to see you. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah,
Awesome.
I'm doing well.
You know, if you jump,
my coach.
What's that?
I love my coach, Michelle, and I'm excited to dive more into this whole thing.
You're in excellent hands. We love Michelle here. So, yeah.
Awesome. Sonia, you said you're thinking of going out of network in a year, so you're getting everything in a row.
Yeah, we have we're PPO with a local kind of company here in Oregon, Pacific Source, and then we're Premier Delta Dental. And I've always told myself, oh, I'm Premier. Like, I'm not a PPO, I'm a Premier. But then I'm realizing, no, you're just a network dentist. And so my thought is, we've kind of run some numbers. I only have about 150 Pacific Source patients. And so if I go out of network starting in 25 with them, it'll be a test to see. But I know we have a lot of work to do with verbal skills with my team. So that's one of my things that I want to work on.
Game on. Well, we're going to support you every step of the way, and we're going to do a follow-up when you finish this mission. And you're going to share with us all that you've learned. How's that?
Sounds good.
That's called voluntolding. Do you like that?
So, Sonia, Chris Mazzola had a great tactic that he used. So make sure you go and watch this recording, because it was a very excellent, using codes and tracking who left and who came back. And you'll want to put that into your plan.
Awesome. Sounds good. Thank you, guys.
Oh, it's our pleasure.
We'll close this out, Kirk.
Hey, thank you guys for listening. Thanks for showing up. We love this stuff. We're geeks about this. And Barrett will turn this off. I'll just keep talking. So I'm just so grateful. I love this profession. We're going to fight like hell to help you guys all create the type of practice you want. It's so much fun. And we love the stories. Like, people always go, why do you do this? There's nothing that makes me happier than hearing the stories from Chris Mazzola. Sonia, we're going to hear your story. And if you come to the top, you know, they probably wouldn't share this on any type of recording, but they're like, I love going to work. I never thought I could do this. I totally know I can do this. And I think our bigger mission here at the BPA or ACT Dental is, it's bigger than dentistry. This country needs entrepreneurs, and we need leaders. And that's what makes this country work. And so it's bigger than dentistry. And so we're committed to creating leaders that create other leaders. And we're just so happy you guys are along for the journey. That's my big statement for the day. So thank you guys for being here. We're going to keep bringing it. You keep showing up. We'll do our end of the deal. So you guys have a great night. We'll see you soon.